So, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome. So, I know you're nervous.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm on a mission to create a space for... I love to demonstrate what's possible through my behavior. I subscribe to a belief system that most people set up unrealistic expectations for themselves and for other people, and try to PR themselves to the world. They try to present a certain version of themselves to the world, which is fine. Like, I don't have a judgment of that. I tend to become more uncomfortable with it when that PR version is not truly, it's not like an extension of who I am. It's like one thing to shelter certain things about myself. Like if I have a medical condition I don't want to share with people, or if I have financial situations people don't need to know about. Like,
right.
I'm not an advocate for like 100% transparency, but I'm trying to find the space for authentic conversation and an authentic expression of myself. Mm-hmm. In a way that shows people who I am and what I'm capable of,
yeah.
That isn't a pitch or an attempt to convert, like traditional marketing.
Yeah.
And I want to find a way to create a venue for myself and for others to produce content that maybe we didn't know we even wanted to produce.
Okay.
So this podcast is just about me conversing with different people about their journey in life and their journey as a business owner or their journeys as educators or whatever. So, I've interviewed Jason Meyer, who is the owner of Hearth and Home. Mm-hmm. He was my first podcast and he's given us the opportunity to use his space. I've interviewed John DeMartini, and I've interviewed Laurel Langmeyer, and now I'm interviewing you.
Cool.
And so the other thing that was really surprising for me was when I was interviewing Jason. I've known Jason since August of 2013, right, Jen?
Yeah, I've known him for quite a while.
We did a Stampede barbecue across the street when we were in that office space for 4 months.
Okay.
And I think it was Brianne brought over the business cards for their whole team.
Yeah.
Got lunch for their whole team and brought it back over here. So we didn't even meet him.
Oh, okay.
And anyways, we had a giveaway. You put your business card in a box, we'll do a giveaway. And Jason, basically Jennifer and I took all the business cards out, put them all on a surface and said, who is our intuition saying we want to give these prizes to?
Oh, it was rigged.
Yeah, I chose Jason.
They're all rigged.
Entrepreneurial.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Which ones of those are not rigged?
Yeah.
They all are.
I mean, rigged or whatever. The mode of selection was to use our intuition. And so we picked Jason.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, go for
Is
it.
it okay to turn that fireplace off? It's so...
Off? I can turn it down.
Or down? Sorry.
Accommodate.
Part of the set,
I know, I'm sorry.
You have to
Alex.
deal with it a little.
Okay.
It is on high.
Okay.
Yeah,
Even just like lower?
Low it.
Yeah, let's try lower. I don't know how this works. Let me try to figure it out. It says max. Oh, okay, here we go.
Minute.
It's turning it down.
Sorry to ruin your ambiance,
No, it's okay.
but it's like really hot.
And it's also set to like 75.
Oh, Jesus.
We're not in a snowstorm.
I know. I'm like sweating, man, and we just got started.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Thanks, Alex.
No worries.
There we go.
Let's see if that works. Should be very small flames now. Yeah.
Yay.
There we go.
Thanks.
It'll get a little cooler.
Okay, cool.
So, anyways, we bring him over a fleece jacket that probably doesn't even fit him. And we had lunch
That's what
at
he won?
Phil's.
The
Yeah.
fleece jacket?
Yeah, from one of our vendors, a Fortinet fleece
sweet.
jacket. And so then we became friends ever since. And the weird thing was, I did this podcast with him, and I just learned a whole bunch of shit about him that I never knew. And I was like, wow, I thought I had this concept of like knowing people, and it's like the truth is I don't actually know you at all. I mean, I kind of do. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, we've worked together for almost 3 years. I've probably spent 8 hours with you.
Maybe
of
10.
actual, of actual time.
I know what you mean, though.
So, I'm interested in just like hearing about your journey. Like,
Okay.
can you tell me what started you in business? Like, how did you get to be, like, first of all, introduce yourself
Okay.
to the world, to me.
Okay. Is this the story that the world hears?
Sure. Like,
Okay.
yeah, like, hi, I'm Kathy. I've run a
There's
business.
the edited version that I tell people. I'll tell you the real version after, because it involves like booze.
No, tell me that version. I want to know
No, but
that.
I don't want the world to know that
Okay,
one.
fine. Tell me
I'll
the,
tell you that version after.
Tell me the version.
Yeah.
Tell me the version of your story that is as close to what
Yeah.
you're willing to share.
Yeah.
Like, who are
for
you?
sure.
How did you get into business? Why interior or architecture? How did you?
So it was almost, I guess, in a sense, a bit of a fluke. I like to say that I was young and very naive. So my background is architectural tech. I actually went to school for computer programming, believe it or not, first. And I was like the world's worst student. I hated it. That was a through SAT. And then so I stumbled upon architectural technology. I thought that was like a pretty cool field to get into, so signed up for the course and started doing it, and then just ended up really loving it. And I'm one of those people that it's really hard to capture my attention for more than 5 minutes.
Yes.
So, as you probably know. So, but it was something that, like, when I started going through it, like, I just really immersed myself in it, and I loved it. So did that, and then so I was at SAIT for a couple years and finished that program. And then when I graduated, or when I was going through the program, there was like 2 different routes that you could take. It was either you could do design, or you could do, it's called BDT, so basically building development technology, which is more like the project management side of things. So that was a side that I really wanted to go to. So that was my major that I ended up doing. And so my dream when I graduated was to become an on-site construction project manager. So, but as a fresh grad at a SAIT, it's very difficult to get a job like that because it's quite high up. And usually they only hire EITs, like engineers in training. So I kind of went from job to job for a little bit just in the custom home world, which I really loved. But I just wanted to jump over to like being on site. Like my dream was to like run trades and do project management, that whole side of things. So I found a company that I really wanted to work with. And basically I applied, I took a whole bunch of time to like put my application together, applied, and basically they just totally rejected me. They're like, there's no way, sorry, you're an AT, you're not an EIT, and you don't have the credentials, blah, blah, whatever. So I was like, okay, well that sucks, because that was like, my dream just got crushed. But then I was like, no, I'm just gonna keep bugging them until they change their mind. So I guess like the short version of that story is like, I just kept like, I literally was like harassing the poor guy. Like I was literally like, it was borderline harassment. Like I called him pretty much like almost every single day until finally he was like, okay, fine, I'll give you a shot. And so so they did, and but then they said, well, I'm going to ship you out to Lethbridge. And at the time, my now husband, like I just met him, and things were going really good, and I was like, oh, like what do I pick, right? Like I can't, like this is really going somewhere, and so I was like, am I going to like give up what I worked so hard for? Because I'm basically moving to Lethbridge, and that I was like in my early 20s, so. So basically, I couldn't believe I did it, but I like actually went back to the guy and I was like, I can't move to Lethbridge. I still want the job, but I'm not moving to Lethbridge, which like at the time I was like, oh my God, either this is going to be the best decision of my life or the worst. And I was like, okay, well, there goes that, right? And so, but yeah, so, I just met Rob, and, it's like, lovey-dovey honeymoon stage. So I was not willing to give that up. And so, so I turned that down, and I thought that was done. But then I got a call back later, like a few weeks later, and the guy's like, oh, well, actually, we have a position now in Canmore. Do you want to go to Canmore? I'm like, well, I can handle that, right?
Yeah,
like
45-minute commute.
Yeah, ish.
I guess an hour, really.
An hour and a half, because you're driving this outside of town. So I don't think I really knew what I was getting myself into, because it was like the job that nobody wanted to take, because it's like, so basically what it entailed is at 5:00 a.m. every single day I had to be at the parking lot of the place that I was meeting my site superintendent, and so it was an hour-ish drive depending on the weather every single morning, because we had to be on site by 7 a.m. And so usually we're on site by like 6:30 a.m. Every single day, and then you shut down the site at 7 to 8 p.m. and then you're home by like 9:30ish, and it's like, holy man. But so at the time I was just like, oh man, these are long days, but whatever. Like I loved it, right? Like I was just stoked that I got that job. So went and, but that ended up being the best thing that's ever happened to me in terms of career-wise, or one of the best things I should say. Because what ended up happening is I drove back and forth with this guy. His name was Norm Reeder, who like to this day I like put him up on a pedestal. He taught me so much of what I know today. This guy was, in the business for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, wood frame residential. And I was like that annoying fresh grad out of school pretty much that like for pretty much 2 to 3 hours of his life every single day, he had to like put up with me asking all these questions about construction and like the construction side of things, right? Like the stuff you never learn in school. And then during the day I would work with him for, like 12 hours straight. So it was like the biggest learning experience of my life. So anyways, that was like, so that basically laid the foundation for everything I know today on the construction side. So I did that job for several years, and then we ended up buying a house together, Rob and I, and then we like moved in together. And at that point, we were like kind of in a financial situation where it's like, hey, I just need a little tiny bit more money. And so I actually took on a second job. So I was actually doing that job in the daytime, and then I was actually waitressing at night, just to try to like make ends meet. And Rob's like, oh, you're killing yourself. What are you doing here? And I'm like, no, I love this. Like I'm okay with this. Like this is temporary, right? And so, we had some conversation, and then one day he said to me, well, why don't you just, and also part-time I was taking on some side jobs doing drafting at night too, so I was kind of doing like 3 things at once. And then so one day he was like, well, why don't you quit your job and start your own company? Like you can go get more drafting contracts. I was like, no, I'm not really gonna do that. I don't think I would not be disciplined enough to do that. And I was 26 at the time. It was like, kind of early, I think it was like February or March of that year, when finally I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. Like I was young, and I remember like looking up to, the bosses I had at the time and be like, oh man, their lives are so easy. It'd be so easy to run a business. They do like nothing, right? Like I'm doing all the hard work here, right? Like I'm so young and so stupid and naive. And so one day I was like, okay, sure, I'm gonna do it. So here I was like 26 years old. We just bought a house. We had 0 life savings at all, and nothing, right? Like no assets. Like it was our first house that we bought. And so, I literally woke up one day and I, walked into my boss's office and I was like, thanks a lot for the opportunity, but, I've kind of decided to go a different direction, and I quit my job. So really I just had to make it work. And the funny thing is, I'll remember to this day when we actually announced it to some of like our close friends, one of our close friends, he said to me, he said to us, he's like, well, I'm going to actually take Monday off or whatever, like day of the week as a work day. And he's like, I'm actually going to go down to the river and like raft down the river. This is when we lived in Okotoks. And he's like, you guys should come with me. It'll be super fun because nobody's on the river like during, the weekdays. Yeah. And I remember distinctly saying to him, oh yeah, now that I own a business, I'm going to have so much time. And totally, count me in. And I remember by the time we got to whatever day that was of the week, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like it was like jumping into the deep end of the pool and having to swim. So yeah, so that was like, so that was kind of like the start.
How many years ago was that?
11, since 2006.
And is that the company you are running today?
Yeah.
How did you come up with Phase 1 design? Where did that come from?
We just made it up. Okay. Basically, like I just, well, I shouldn't say we made it up. It was just, just some brainstorming, and then it's just basically the first phase of anything you do is like you do plans. Well, design. Back then it was drafting and design. Yeah. Okay. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you obviously had a work ethic. I mean, not very many people, lots of people just don't want to do like an 8-hour shift. You were doing 12-hour shifts and then working a second and third job. Where do you perceive that came from? Why? Was that something that you got from your parents, or?
I think so. Like when I was growing up, my dad was like, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, which was like awesome. And so my dad was kind of like the breadwinner. And my mom's always had like a really positive attitude. Like if you ever met my mom, she's like, she's a... Biggest fan? Yes, definitely, 100%. But she's always like, whatever happens, like always looks on the bright side, and like nothing ever really like lets her down. And my dad's just one of those, like he just does like whatever it takes kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But very modest. Like I don't come from like a rich family or anything like that, right? Super, super modest family, but... Did they both work? No, just my dad. Just your dad? I mean, that's pretty common in that generation, I think. Mm. So your mom cared for you growing up. Mm-hmm. She was the caregiver, and your father was working. What did your father do? He was an accountant. Okay. In oil and gas. Cool. Yeah. How long did it take you to get to the point where you were hiring? How long did you spend doing it on your own? I think the second year. Okay.
And were you running it out of your house for the first year?
Yeah, for the first 3, I want to say, 3-ish.
Yeah. What were some of the lessons that you realized really early on that, if there's the audience that I'm looking to cultivate is entrepreneurs and business owners, like a nice mix of people at varying stages of companies. And so for that experience of going from being an employee to taking on the accountabilities of running a business, what were some of the things that surprised you that now are status quo? Like, that every business owner needs to think about these things, but what comes up for you as things that you were surprised by or that you didn't realize or you felt came out of left field? Like, what were some of those lessons early on?
I think just the amount of work that you have to put in, and by work I mean like more so the sheer hours, and not that it was like a hard thing to do. Like, if you're really, really into it and engaged in it, like the day flies by so quickly. Like you can work a 12-hour day and it feels like you were only at work for like 4 hours and it's still not enough hours. So like just immersing yourself in something so deep that like, I don't know, there's just, I don't know, I guess I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like when you think that's all you have, like you just somehow reach deep down inside and you just find more, right? Like to keep going. And just being able to like look over challenges, like no matter what happens, you don't really have, like back then, you don't have anyone else. It's literally like you, and it's not that you don't have a network of friends and family, but it's like, when you're in the moment, you're like, oh man, this disaster happened. Okay, like now how am I gonna fix it, right? So you have to figure things out. You have to be so resourceful. And this is back before Google was popular, so this is like gonna date me, or at least I wasn't using it anyways. So that, and I think the power of a team. So like our first hire, like I mentioned, I think he lasted maybe 3 months max, and that was a complete disaster. So really recognizing the difference from like being somebody that you work with to being someone who's, I don't even want to say boss, because boss isn't the same as a leader, but like just that leadership. Like for the longest time, I didn't even know what leadership meant. Like I don't even think for the first 4 or 5 years, I had no idea what that word even meant. Besides what you like read on paper, right?
Yeah. What are the challenges that you have faced as a leader? Like, I mean, some examples are, learning to delegate.
Learning to delegate and learning to be a role model. Like sometimes when you get really frustrated and like your brain is telling you like you want to like react and say one thing, but that's not for the betterment of the team. You got to keep like just a cool head and just keep going, or like try to just remove yourself from the situation and take it so personally and like rise up above what you're thinking and just be more of a leader rather than react as a human being, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. Like becoming able to govern one's emotions in order to have a disciplined approach to solving problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I find my emotions want to burn the whole fucking place down.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And, the rational side of me very carefully puts a leash on it.
Exactly.
And is like, okay, how do I not destroy everyone's confidence and communicate this in terms of an opportunity? Right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So the team you have now, believes in you. I didn't mention this, but you're a client of ours, so we spend a lot of time working with your end users, and the team that you've had, like you don't have a lot of churn. You don't turn over people. Why do you think they stay? Like how are you able to find these people that believe in you and your company, and how are you able to nurture them into a position where they feel like they're achieving their goals in life and sticking with you for so long?
Well, I think it's really just treating people like they should be treated. Mm-hmm. As simple as that might sound, it's just like, I just think back to the times when I was an employee and how I was treated. And I think a lot of that comes from those experiences. Like in my earlier days when, I was working for a boss, I was an asshole or whatever. And just going through that experience, I think I remember when I first started the company and started having like employees, or even like thinking to myself, okay, now this is like when we have to start building a team. It was like, I will never forget those experiences. And, even like 11 years into this, I always want to make sure I never lose touch with that, right? So even just like small things, like even just like saying hello, or like, caring about like, I don't know what my team's family life is, just small things like that. I think just treating people like human beings.
Give some examples, because there's lots of people out there that are treating people the way they think human beings should be treated, but they're not having the same results. So I think like people come from a place where it's like, like everyone is always doing their best, right? And so there are some practical things that you likely have not given yourself credit for that you've learned that foster a feeling of your employees being cared for and being appreciated.
I think a really big one, I think, for our team is more just like there's no like pecking order in the sense where, like, let's say, for example, if I make a mistake, then I always try really hard to, like, you know, admit it and just be like one with the team. Like, I actually give my team the permission to like call me out on it and say, hey, listen, Kathy, you totally dropped the ball here. And so we've built that culture around that.
Yep.
And also to make sure that, you know, if somebody else on our team has, let's say, dropped the ball, then they feel that ability to express themselves without feeling like they're going to be, like, you know, reprimanded in a really bad way or like lose their job or I don't know, something like that, which is what would happen in a lot of companies.
So you've created a space for people to make mistakes. And
yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to answer that question. I think I treat my team like I would treat my family. Like, and I do truly feel like they are my family. Like, and you know, a lot of people don't agree with that. They're like, okay, well, you have to have, like, be removed from your team and have that professional. And so, rightly or wrongly, I don't agree with that. Like, I think your team members are humans, just like you and I. We're like all on equal playing fields. We just have different roles within the company. And I always try to hire people who are smarter than me. Like, that's actually a criteria that I look for when I'm hiring. So I would say that every single person on my team, sitting on my team today, and every single person that we will ever hire in the future, they're all going to be smarter than me in some way, shape, or form. And if they're not, they're probably not the right fit. So.
Right, and you're not actually delegating if they're not smarter than you, because you're going to end up doing it or telling them what to do.
Yeah, exactly. But when you delegate, I don't know, it's more like I find a lot of organizations have that like dictatorship kind of thing where it's like, I'm the boss, so I'm going to, like, you know, like, I'm going to tell you what to do and you just have to do it. I guess that's not really my leadership style. I don't know. I actually don't think it's, I don't know. I know you're saying that, like, I created this thing, but maybe I did. Maybe I didn't, but I don't feel like it's like, I don't know, something, I guess I kind of intentionally created it.
You did.
But.
I want to give you credit for it.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things that I think is largely undervalued, even among those who are doing it, is the weight of accountability. You mentioned just a second ago, everyone is smarter than me in their own way. The way I look at that is in the context of values. So I call myself a value-based leader or a value-based communicator. I've subscribed to a belief system or a way of looking at human behavior that I learned from John DeMartini that basically says that every human being operates according to a hierarchy of values, that there's things in their life that is more important to them than others, and that they express all of their behaviors and their decisions and their actions in life against that hierarchy.
Right.
Whether they're conscious of it or not.
Like core values, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, we have those.
And so, well, I'm not sure what that definition is, but for me, the definition of values is really around content. So if you were to ask me what my values are, it would be business and entrepreneurialism, wealth, my family and my relationship to Jennifer, education and the activation of vision, and fitness and movement. And those are contents, right? I don't subscribe to moral or social idealisms. I don't look at values from the perspective of you should always tell the truth and not lie. You should always be nice and not mean. I think that we all do those things in our own way. So when I look at my team, or I look at helping my clients to hire, or I try to communicate with individuals in my life, I'm looking to communicate according to what that individual has demonstrated with their behavior is important to them. And John has a saying, he says, nobody comes to work for you, or nobody comes to work for their job. They come to work to fulfill their values. And as long as working for you is they perceive as the most effective way to fulfill their values, and you don't challenge them to such a degree that it's more painful to work with you than pleasurable, then they stay. Mm-hmm. And so what I see is that there's individuals who choose to delegate by values are far more successful than the patriarch demanding that people subordinate and do what he says.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so what I try to do is basically say, okay, this role or responsibility in my business has these contents, right? Like, so we're hiring designers, we're hiring developers, we're hiring video people, we're hiring IT people. Like, we have skill sets. And so when I'm looking for an individual, I'm looking for an individual who truly loves, like, would actually spend their free time coding websites.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
I know exactly what you mean.
They truly
Yes.
love that.
Yeah, passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would call it inspiration. And so as long as I'm effective at communicating in terms of that, they're all over it. They'll do it automatically.
Right.
And there's a value to them engaging in the behaviors that fulfill on those responsibilities, which makes them employees. But then there's this whole other component to value, which is the value of holding an accountability. So you've just picked up Scaling Up and the Rockefeller Habit stuff. And in the book and in the framework, they talk about the difference between accountability and responsibility.
Right.
And how responsibility can be something that many people are doing. Like, to be responsible for something is to have the ability to respond and contribute. And many people can do that. But only one person can be accountable to any one thing.
That's right.
And accountability means basically the person who measures its success or failure, the person who determines if it's going to work or not, ultimately the person where all of the weight of that system lands, and where no one else can make a decision about it.
You're talking the accountability chart, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, for you as the business owner, I want to recognize you and maybe help you see that there's a value in business and there's a value in the world of simply holding a vision, because the vision is accountable, or is an accountability to doing something in the world.
I agree.
And nobody could be responsible for anything if you weren't there holding that accountability in place and making promises to people and going out and selling stuff and saying, this is what we're going to do, and whether you help me or not, we're going there. That is something that I think a lot of business owners undervalue, you know, and they think, well, I have to do work to justify my existence. And so, like, to me, you know, you have a team who believes in you and what you're trying to achieve in the world, and they're working really hard to contribute to that, because they recognize your place in the company as holding that accountability, right? And
Right.
I would guess that they don't want you to do work. I would guess that if you went in there and you asked them, and they had permission to be totally honest, or they found a way to have the space for it, I imagine if I were to say, do you think that Kathy has earned the right to ease back on having to work so much? And I say work like labor work. And they would say, absolutely. You know why? Because she's created the space for us to be more of who we are. And I think that's something to be recognized and valued.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. And give yourself permission to do more of it. Because I know you love to work. Like, you're just saying, we're going to go do some video after this. And you're like, I'm up till 1, I'm doing my video.
Yeah, but
I'm doing my client stuff. And you're like, I love it. And I get all that. But
Alex, does it really work if you like what you're doing? Like,
no.
Like, to me, I mean, I think that's like, and I feel really lucky to be able to say this because I know a lot of people can't say this, but like, yeah, when you like what you do, it doesn't feel like work. Like, when I first started the company when I was like 26, I was like, by the time I'm 35, I'm going to be semi-retired. And I think
God.
I've actually hit that goal. Because to me, being semi-retired means that like, you know, obviously everybody has their days where you're just like, oh my goodness, my to-do list is just insane and I feel overwhelmed. But like, more or less, like, I'm doing what I want to do. So yeah, your example, if I was up to 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, my body tells me I need to go to sleep, but I could like do this all night. And I'm like, Alex is going to kill me if I sleep in and like miss this podcasting tomorrow. But yeah, it didn't feel like work at all. And even last night when I was like in the office, like working on the video script that we're going to do later, I mean, I don't know, to me, I was like, oh, I wish I wasn't so tired because I could actually finish this. And I wish I had like an extra day so I could actually practice this thing and like just nail it and perfect it. Like, I was actually pissed off that I didn't have enough time to finish it, you know, to make it perfect. But yeah, it doesn't feel like work. And like, when I go and like meet new people, meet new business contacts, and like go help somebody to talk about their project and stuff like that doesn't feel like work to me. Like, meetings go by so quickly. My days go by, like, they feel like 4-hour days to me.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm living the life in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, from that perspective, and I mean, I don't really have anything to complain about, right? Like, it's that whole saying of like, gratitude, be grateful for what you have. Like, I'm very grateful for what I have, even though I definitely still have, like, I'm not even close to being done yet. We have way bigger goals to accomplish, and so there's that part of it. But at the end of the day, like, you know, I'm kind of in my dream job right now. With
That's cool that
dream
you say
team.
that. That's cool that you say that. I think that your team would stand behind that, and I think that there's probably lots of things you're still doing that you will let go of as you grow that vision.
Definitely.
It's humbling. It's humbling, I think, to be in that position. I feel the same way. Like, I have my challenges like anyone else. I mean, businesses are ripe with challenges.
Yep.
Like, and if we didn't like solving problems, we wouldn't be doing
That's
it.
what makes it fun.
Right.
Maybe not fun.
And
Just
in the
keeps you
moment,
on your toes.
in the moment, it can be challenging, but
Yeah.
there's always a way, right?
But that's how you grow. Because if you don't have challenges, if your business is just like, if it's too easy, it's actually really dangerous because you just put it in cruise control and then you don't do anything. Like, you don't grow. Because I think, like, without that challenge, like, how do you take it to the next level?
Gary Vaynerchuk says, "Put yourself out of business, or else someone else will." Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that is. It's like, as long as you continue to take on challenges, or place a demand upon yourself, then you're not dependent on others placing demands upon you.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's cool. You mentioned a second ago there's days that you feel overwhelmed, and I think, like a lot of business owners struggle with, there's always those days. And I think sometimes those days can
totally.
stretch into weeks or whatever for some
Definitely.
business owners.
Yes.
What strategies have you been able to find in your life that you've used to eject from that downward spiral? How do you deal with that or cope with that?
That's a good question. So, gratitude is a huge one, like for me internally, and just having like a positive attitude. That's huge. Like, even just, you know, just getting up in the morning and saying, hey, you know, we have like the best company, and like just kind of like self-talk. Like, I find when I first found out about doing that, I actually was like, oh my God, that's so cheesy. I would never do that. But like, and then I tried it a few times, and you know, those days when you're like, I don't even want to get out of bed. This sucks.
Yeah.
Like, when you do that, it's actually like, it's shocking how much that works. And it's not like you have to sit there and like repeat that for like, you know, 20 minutes. It's like even just saying that to yourself like 10 times, like, and it's like, okay, driving to work, it's like, hey, you got this. You've been through worse shit before. You can get through this too. Sorry, am I allowed to swear on
Yes.
this? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You can fucking swear as much as you want.
Okay, good.
No, it's good.
Okay, good. But, oh yeah, what was the question? Oh yeah, how do you get through those days? So there's that, and then I think it's just taking action, for me anyways. And I think taking action, it's almost like a distraction, right? So like, instead of sitting there in like self-pity and being like, oh my goodness, why is this happening to me? Like, you know, you might have that moment for like a minute, and like, I allow myself just to like have that, just feel sorry for myself and like do whatever. Then it's like, okay, stop crying, Kathy. Not physically crying, but like inside crying, and be like, get your shit together, pick yourself up, and like do whatever it takes to get to the other side. And I actually find that in the moment, you're like, this is the worst moment of my life. But I think that what happens in those moments is it almost like gives you that second or third or fourth win that you get in that moment, and the things that second, third, or fourth win allows you to do to get past that moment. Those are the moments when like you take so much massive action, or I do anyways, where like looking back, I'm like, holy crap, how did I do that? Like, so there's been every single time where I've had an insane challenge where I was like, I have no idea how I'm gonna get past this. The thing that happened immediately after was like, it basically kicked me in the ass to like go out and do something that I was probably avoiding to do, or like maybe I was doing, but like maybe just slowly. And then it just comes to the point where it's like, just do it, right? And then looking back, I'm like, why didn't I do that like 3 months ago, right?
So it's like the fuck it moment.
Yeah.
You know the whole time you're procrastinating, or there's this one thing you're avoiding.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
So I have one of those.
Yeah.
So we had a developer, he worked with us for about a year. And 3.5 months, Jen, maybe? 3.5 months ago, he left. We just parted ways. And I went into a bit of like fear about what that would mean. Like, how will I find someone else? This is going to be very challenging.
Totally.
I'm just going to take on the work in the meantime. And I started compensating, like out of a sense of scarcity and out of a sense of, well, if I do the work, I can inflate our numbers, and it's just a bunch
You're like
of emotional,
justifying it.
Bullshit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then eventually it got to the point where actually this week, well, not really this week, because my team is very helpful and they've started to learn to accommodate to Alexander doing dumb shit. So they had started a hiring process in spite of me.
Oh, really?
Like a few
Your team
weeks
did
ago.
this?
Yeah.
Certainly did.
That's
Yeah, they just know because they know my plan. We do quarterly goals and we have 30 objectives and they know the course of the business. Like I'm very articulate. I have a master plan. Like it's all laid out. It's
That's
like
cool.
waking up in the morning, right? It's like if you say, I'm going to wake up in the morning and you set your alarm the night before, there's that moment in the morning where you can decide when your alarm goes off, am I going to go exercise or am I going to turn off the alarm and sleep in? That moment, right?
Yeah.
And so I've done everything in my power to give my team permission to hold me accountable to my alarm clock. Meaning, if I've set a goal and then I become afraid or emotional or scared or whatever it is, my team has permission to hold me accountable to my strategy in spite of how I'm feeling.
That's really cool.
Like, I don't want to push snooze on my life.
Yeah.
But we all do. Like,
Yeah.
we all have our emotions.
Totally.
And so the challenge with the leadership is when the leader sets the plan and then it's the leader who wants to press snooze.
Totally.
If I haven't empowered my team to do something about that,
Yeah.
they'll follow and everyone hates
Yeah,
it,
for
right?
sure.
So anyways, there was one of those moments this week for me
Yeah.
where it was like, how does this make any fucking sense? If I'm saying I can build $100 million business, if I'm saying I want to add team, if I'm saying I am certain I can serve people, if it is true that the work we do is meaningful, then why do I have a fear of hiring? How does that make any sense at all? So, we sent out offer letters. And it was one of those moments where it's like, sent the offer letter and I'm sitting in that moment thinking, why the fuck did this take so long?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
why did I do that?
Yeah.
And I think there's an unconscious strategy that I could choose to honor, which is I wanted to be sure certain things were taken care of. I wanted to make sure that there were certain things handled, like everything happens in its right time. So I have that sense of how come I didn't do it sooner? But I also have a sense of, well, if I didn't do it and I am a master strategist, consciously or unconsciously, I was waiting for the right time and now is just the right time.
For sure. You know what though? I think when those moments happen, I think it's for most people that I talk to, it's mostly like fear-based. So, and it's having that self-awareness to be like, oh, I'm having one of those moments again. And it's like, what am I actually scared of doing? Like, what am I scared of failing? Am I scared because I don't know, like literally I don't know how to do it? And then once you can kind of like take that and like, take it apart and like analyze it. So let's say, for example, it's like, well, I'm scared of failing. It's like, okay, well, like, let's just run through that in my brain. Like, what are all the possible reasons that I can fail? What are the risks? And then just put some logic around it to be like, okay, well, let's say if I'm scared that I'm not going to find anyone, then it's like, okay, well, let's put a plan in place to mitigate that risk or whatever, right?
Because there's a
like,
real thing behind the fear.
So simple.
It's not just fear.
There is,
yeah.
but it's usually, and it could be usually looking back for me anyways, I'm like, that was so stupid. Like, what was I thinking?
I
should have
know.
just done it.
Yeah.
Like, duh. Even like that stupid thing, like I wasted a whole bunch of money hiring I told you the story, some stupid video guy who will remain unnamed. But and I was just like, oh, okay, well, just because I don't want to do this, like I don't have time to do that. That was just excuses. And then really at the end of the day, I actually realized it was just because I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't want to do it not perfect. And I didn't want to do it like not do it 120%, because that's just, I don't know, my brain is wired to do everything like as close to perfect.
You have high standards.
Yeah, I have very high standards. So I didn't want to not have that high standard in that, especially if it's like out there for all the world to see. So I was just kind of avoiding it. So I paid some guy like a whole bunch of money to do it, and then basically that was a disaster. And but then within the past week, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go online and like Google how to do this, and like literally within like a few hours, it's like, oh, this wasn't that hard at all. Like I've been procrastinating about this for like the last like 8 months now.
Video.
And I've wasted like all this money on, hiring a guy that said he could help me, when like literally all the stuff he really quote unquote helped me with, I figured that out in like less than a week, right? Like seriously. So it's just like, everything just seems so simple afterwards.
Yeah, I get that. So you mentioned, one of the things you mentioned, which I thought was really cool when you were talking about dealing with overwhelm or stress, was, I'll call it affirmations. I practice affirmations. There's a book called The Morning Miracle that talks
I've heard of
about,
that.
it just talks about how to change your life before 8 a.m.
Totally.
And they basically say if you do these 6 things every day, your life will change.
What are the 6 things?
It's called savers.
Okay.
So silent affirmation.
Okay.
No, sorry. Silent meditation.
Yeah.
Affirmations.
Yeah.
Visualizations.
Yeah.
Exercise. Reading and scribing. Writing.
Right.
Journaling.
Right.
And basically, you just do all that In the morning.
Before 8 a.m.
Before you go to work.
Okay.
Really, it's like, so, Brendan Burchard is like, don't look at your email before you've set your goals. Like, don't let your life be dictated by other people's priorities. Your
Right.
inbox is just a dumping ground for other people's agendas.
That's so true.
So for example, I have a rule that until I'm done savers, I can't look at my notifications on my
Yeah.
phone.
Oh, wow.
Like, have you ever had that thing where it's like you wake up in the morning, you open up Facebook Messenger, or you get that text message and it's a complaining customer, and that
Yes.
primes you for the whole day.
Totally. Yeah, it sets your entire day.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've made it my mission to just be like, okay, I've kind of realized that there's this operating system in my head
Yeah.
that is making 99% of my decisions for me. Like, if you have a business challenge, for example, you're looking at a problem and you're like, okay, there's these 3 options. I could do this or this or this.
Yeah.
You actually didn't do any of the analysis that led you to having those 3 options. It's like your subconscious is doing all of this computation, and then it's like
Yeah.
option
Based on,
A,
like, past
B, and C,
experiences.
right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, one level of discernment is how good was I at choosing between A, B, and C, right? And I think a lot of people live there. But my question is, how exactly did we computate even the options A, B, and C? Like, how did those come to exist?
It's like the filter of your past experiences.
Right, like that came from my sum total beliefs. It came from my values. It came from my subconscious. It came from my current situation. It was computated by what I believe about the world. And so if I have, and I have lots of disempowering beliefs or invalid frameworks for how the world works, or I don't have a system in my mind for how to build wealth, and instead I have scarcity psychology. Like, there's all these ways that those 3 options could have been fucked
sure.
before they even showed up in my head,
Yeah.
And
a lot
so-
of it is internal. It's all it's all internal.
So then I realized, okay, well, the thing is that's being programmed every day by what I say and what I believe and by what I affirm and by what I think of myself and by who I surround myself with. They say you are the 5 people you surround yourself with most.
Totally.
And I realized one day, holy shit, I can just program that. Like, I don't have to be a victim to it. I can program it.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you just spoke to that. You're like, in a day where I'm overwhelmed, I can just reprogram my state.
Yeah. It's self-awareness. I think self-awareness is huge.
Yeah. So how did you come to be self-aware? Like, was it an accident? Like, somehow you just knew this is what you wanted? Lots of people spend their whole lives not even believing about themselves, I don't know what I want. So how did you get to knowing what you want?
I think it's just I read a lot. That's what I do for fun in my free time. And I read, so I think a lot of what I know today comes from reading books, like in all sorts of books. Like a lot of what I just talked about, there's like tons and tons of books I've read about that. And then just surrounding myself with like other business owners and like business leaders and stuff like that. I'm part of tech, so that's really helped, like just build a network of like-minded people and just listening to like their challenges and like.
What is tech for people who are listening?
Oh, tech. We'll just Google it.
TEC.
TEC.
It's an acronym, stands for the Executive Council.
Committee, I think. It's
the
just known as
Executive
tech.
Committee.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's known as tech, and so I've been a member for quite a few years now, and it's great. It's kind of like a mastermind group, but better.
Led by a chair?
Led by a chair. Yeah, we have a chair, and So basically, it's a network of business owners that you meet once a month.
Yep.
And for half the day, you have a speaker. And when I say a speaker, it's a very, very, very high quality speaker. And then the rest of the 16 people in your group, really the best way to describe them, they become like your extended family over the years. And it's a safe place for business owners too, because we share confidential information in terms of all our financials, everything like that. But it's much more than just a business. It's like holistic, right? So somebody has like a personal challenge in their life and things like that. Like our group has gotten to the point where there's things that the group knows about that person that even their friends and family might not know. It's just that having that network that's that close and really gets it. Because in the world of business owners, as you know, it's almost a whole different world that it can be really, really lonely if you don't have that network. So I think that's been really powerful. And that's where I've learned a lot of what I know today is just sharing, right? And meeting with people and being like, hey, I'm having this challenge. And it's like, you'll have 5 different people reach out to you and be like, hey, how can I help, right? Let's just go for coffee and I can kind of share whatever, share ideas and solutions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're business owners of a similar caliber to where you're at.
Exactly.
Because I think one of the challenges with establishing a network of peers in business, especially if you're an entrepreneur just starting out, you're told go to BNI.
Yes.
Go to these referral exchange clubs, and I have personally found it very challenging.
Yeah.
Not like I'm a victim to it, but
Yeah.
I realized very early on that if I wanted to really excel, I would have to target specific people who had already achieved what I want to achieve, or who were actually achieving
Yes.
what I want to achieve at the same
I
level.
know exactly what you mean.
Like,
yes, I
you've
totally
spent
agree.
some time in groups where you were the superior.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like
That's challenging, right?
It is challenging, and it's like I think the lesson there is I always say I want to be the dumbest person in the room and the least successful person in the room.
Right.
Right. Because then everybody else is there. And I think even being the least successful person in the room, I always feel like you have to be in a state of mind where you're not there just to like get everything you can and like suck everything out of everybody else. Right. You have to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And give back like your knowledge and stuff like that. But yeah, I totally agree, and not to like bash BNI because I've met lots of great people through groups like BNI. But yeah, that's definitely for new entrepreneurs. That's something that I think is good to know, because I think at those groups, they attract the new entrepreneurs. But then,
I mean, if you're an isogenics rep, or you're like a Beachbody coach, or you're like a chiropractor,
Or a
you're
consultant.
like a flower shop,
Yeah.
or something like that, I think like BNI is a really great place to go.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
everybody needs flowers, and everybody needs an adjustment and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what I found is nobody's going to commit to $1 million 10-year
No.
IT services
No,
contract
exactly.
out of BNI.
Yeah.
That's just not where my clients hang out.
Yeah.
And so like that's critical, like you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing yourself well enough to end up in the right group. And I have found that one of the best strategies that I've been able to find is targeting people and making them my mentor. It's like, who specifically can I go model or follow or figure out how they did it?
yeah.
So who do you look up to? Who are you studying? Who are you following? Who have been some of the people that you've found most influential in helping you shape your business career or your business acumen?
I think there's like lots of people. Again, I read a lot of books.
Okay, so what are some of your favorite books? Like, what are some of the mentors or books or subjects or courses that really you felt had a lot of value and shifted how you approached business?
So I think, oh my gosh, I have like a library of books. And the way I read books, like I'm a little bit ADD, not really ADD.
You read like 9 at once?
What's that?
You read like
yeah,
9
I have
at once?
like
There's a Japanese word for that.
Yeah.
What is that word where you leave piles of books laying around, or you're always collecting books? Is that you?
Yeah, but I actually read them. Like
Yeah.
I'm actually reading them. Like,
Yeah.
and I read, like, if I'm in one mood, I'll read one book, and then if I'm in another mood, I'll read another book.
Some of my best ideas
So
happen
lots
when
of
I'm
them.
studying 5 things at once.
Yeah.
You find that they come together?
I can't focus on one thing all, like, from start to finish. Or I shouldn't say that. I can do that, but very rarely can I do that unless, like, something is so engaging, like, it fully captures my attention. So I don't even know how to answer that question.
Give me some of your favorite books. What have been some of the favorite things? Or
My favorite books?
Yeah.
I really, really like Jeffrey Gitomer.
Yep.
Yeah, he's
The
like
Little Red Book?
Yeah, the Little Red Book of Sales. Like I have all his little red book collections, and I just bought like 3 more of them just recently. That's actually how I learned originally how to sell, like way back in the day. Like,
Yep. My dad bought me his book.
Oh, really?
When I was very young. Yeah.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And I can't even remember the author, but it the title of the book is, I think, Why People Fail.
Okay.
Because that's like a really good book that I found where, like, if I'm just in like a really bad place where I'm like, oh, I know I shouldn't be in this place, but like I just need to like dig myself out of this like mental and emotional hole that I'm in. I always like go read just like a few chapters out of there, and then it just kind of like brings me back up to the surface. So that's always a book that I'm continually like going back to. Dale Carnegie, is that how you
Yep.
say his name?
Yep.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
That's a really good one as well. I think just like really fundamental,
That's a yearly
just being
read.
real.
That's a yearly read
Yeah.
for sure. I think it's like a great reminder because it's not a complicated book.
It's not. It's like,
just like, here's 9
simple things, yeah.
you just would be wise to fucking do.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want to be one of those fakies that like just go out there and like want to like. You know how there's fake people out there who like,
Hi, Kathy.
to pretend to be.
I read in this book I should say your name, Kathy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to say your name, Kathy.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like just because I think you can get me a sale. But like I find for some reason that book like grounds me to be a human being, because sometimes we get so caught up in like, oh, okay, I need to do this, and this for my business. But it's like sometimes I find myself driving home at like 11 o'clock at night from the office, and I'm like, I see this person like walking their dog, and I'm like, what? I'm like, how come I can't be normal like that? Like I spend all my time working, and I have a dog, so my husband does lots of that stuff, which is awesome. But
It's
yeah,
your
so
mission,
it just kind
Kathy.
of grounds you.
Like you have a
kinda
mission.
grounds you.
You have a mission. You keep saying I spend all my time working, and then you're like, it's not work if you love it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
You're on a mission.
Yes.
You know.
Totally.
I don't
totally on a
I don't
mission.
want to. Why should I stop my mission to go do something else?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That was a bad example. I should walk my dog, and I do walk my dog. Sorry, just for clarity.
Does your dog even need walking?
No, he's like little.
He runs himself in circles.
Yeah.
He is.
He just throw a toy around or like laser. He loves the laser.
Does he really?
Yes, he does.
That dog has some
really
cat
funny.
traits.
What's that?
That dog has some cat traits.
My dog?
Yeah. He's got some cat personality, but he's like the
I've
most
never had a
energetic
cat.
dog.
Yeah, he's very energetic. And
kind of dog
loves
is he?
you. He's a French bulldog.
Yeah. I saw your dog and I'm like, I'm having one of those.
Oh, you are gonna have one of those?
I don't know.
He's amazing.
We
It's
like
the
to
best
travel.
dog ever.
We like to travel, and so like when we like to travel together.
So then you can just call me and I'll babysit your dog, and then we can be like
you
dog
travel
babysitting
too.
buddies.
That's not happening.
That's true.
Yeah, that's not
I can
happening.
leave him at my office.
Jamie.
Leave it with Jamie. That's true.
You're
That's
right though.
true.
Those dogs don't need a lot of exercise. Like you can literally, like they literally sleep all day. For the first like year you do, but yeah, he just sleeps all day, and then you just take him outside, and then you just kind of play around with him inside like our little 568 square foot condo that we live in right now in Vancouver, and yeah, that's all they need.
If there was an individual who's just starting out, getting into business, and they were to ask you for some advice, what would you tell that person to give them the highest probability of being real with themselves and being successful in life? What advice would you give them?
I would say to them, be humble and like don't think you know everything. Like learn everything you can. Like read as many books as you can, or like courses or whatever. Just like educate yourself, because pretty much you can teach yourself everything if you have that right attitude. And don't give up, because I mean, guaranteed you're gonna fail.
Lots.
Like multiple times, like pretty much till the day you die. The difference between the people who keep going and the people who don't keep going is like the difference between people who succeed and don't succeed. Like it's funny because you look at people like the story of like Starbucks and Steve Jobs and, you know, like all the big names that people like look at them, and a lot of people are like, oh, they're overnight successes. But when you actually study them, the average time frame to get to that level of business is like 20 to 25 years.
25 years.
But nobody actually talks about that part. Or
They
very
just
rarely.
like the glory, right?
Yeah,
They
it's
like
just
the
like,
six
whoa,
pack.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
So, but if you actually really read their stories, it's like if you actually read their stories of failures, it's crazy. Like they failed so many times, but they just decided it's not a failure, it's a learning experience, and then you just get up and you keep doing it again.
Yeah.
And that sounds like it's really easy to say, but like I've been there. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there so many times, and it's just like, yeah, like glory's just like around the corner. You just have to keep going, and then just recognize that something's going to happen again. So you just have to see it as a learning experience. That'll make you stronger.
Yeah. And I would say, like, if you're not enjoying it, you're doing the wrong thing, because you enjoy it and that makes you willing to endure those challenges.
Yeah.
So I love the persistence idea, and I think that there's also a component to that if you truly don't feel that you want to or can be persistent, then actually give yourself permission to give up, but not give up on life. Give up on that thing and try something else.
Exactly.
Because as long as you're trying something else, you'll eventually get to the point where you want to do that thing forever.
Exactly.
And then it's not about the end. It's just about the journey.
And I think that's a really important thing that I think like I kind of stumbled upon. I already had this, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, actually, I'm really glad I just had that, versus like, you know, making myself have that is like just having like a really, like they call it like big, hairy, audacious goal. Like a goal where it's like, oh my God, there's like no way. Like, you know, you have it right when you tell somebody that goal and they almost kind of laugh at you because you're like, how on earth are you possibly going to do that?
Elon,
so you have to
Elon
have
wants
that.
to go to Mars, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so you know you have the right goal when you have that. And just to have that vision, because that vision is what's going to pull you through to the end. And subconsciously, it kind of programs your mind into like going there. So the vision part's like really important. So like for our vision, for our company, I always jokingly, only half jokingly say, like we're going to take over the world from like an architectural design standpoint, right? And and then it's more articulated. Like we're going to first take over Canada, and then we're going to take over the United States, and then the world. And by take over, I don't mean actually take over. Obviously, I mean like, you know, leaving that legacy of
make
like,
a
our
mark
name.
on it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and leaving that legacy and having that impact. And that's not just our clients, it's like to our team members who are part of that team and all the people who surround us as part of that. But it's interesting because I look back and I'm like, wow, like I actually feel like, you know, we are actually doing that goal it's like, because now we have 2 locations and hopefully a 3rd very soon, like that we're already kind of looking at. So yeah, so I think that's really powerful, just to have that North Star to guide you.
Yeah, if you're looking for something tomorrow, it's probably not the right thing.
Yeah,
right?
like if it's too easy, like you almost need to say it to a point where you only kind of sort of have to believe. You're like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that.
Yeah, Jim Rohn would say you have to become a different person to achieve that.
Yeah.
You have to grow through yourself to get there. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is I want to show the world what it takes to build a $100 million service company in an era where service companies aren't sexy.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know that. You're running a service business.
Yeah.
You and I are the exception these days.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because usually they're very small. But I also believe that it can't be about the money. Like, the vision can't be like, that's not what I'm saying about yours, but like a lot of people are like, well, I want to go make like $50 million. That's not a vision. Like, it has to be bigger than money.
Yeah, that's a lifestyle. I want to operate a $100 million company.
Yeah.
I could give a shit because even if I had all the money in the world, I would still be operating my company.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. That's cool. So, okay, great. Any final words? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to get off your chest and let the world know? No?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to my amazing team and my friends and my family for getting us where we are today.
Yeah.
And there's lots of exciting things to come.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you watching, thank you for watching. If you like this content, subscribe to this video, like the video. If you have any questions for myself or for Kathy, put them in the comments. I'll make sure to get them over to her. And as always, we'll probably do another one. We'll see who the guest will be because I don't have a plan. But we've done these every Saturday now for like 3 Saturdays in a row. We're doing lots of these. So
are you?
Yeah, and we'll have you back again. We'll check in and see how many other cities you've begun to take over. And maybe we'll do something in Vancouver.
Yeah, you should come to Vancouver.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for watching and or listening, and we'll catch you guys later.